Sit down, shut up. Okay. Game of the month of the year for 2021. Just let that chill for a minute. So, hi. Dude, where you been? What's going on? What happened? Life, pretty much. In case you don't know that trick with the finger, it makes it defoam faster. So anyway, let's just get this in frame. Okay, cool. So where have I been? Long story short, it's really work. And I'm actually changing jobs again. Made a decision. I'm staying in the same industry I transitioned into, but I made a decision just to move on to something else. So that's kicking off in the next couple of days. And I've pretty much just been chilling, just relaxing, just playing games. And I have to say, as much as I really, really wish that I stuck with the whole journal idea, it's just hard to sit down and make videos. Like I said originally, just sitting in front of a computer. If you're wondering why 2018 is on this, by the way, it's how long I've had this and it hasn't broken yet, because I've broken like 5 of these douchebag glasses. So this is the oldest. The only one that's made it. We still got a couple of days to break the record. So it's just been difficult for me just to sit down and just really want to do a video, especially since I've been just chatting with people on Discord and Facebook Messenger and text and all this other stuff anyway. So I'm kind of just getting it out there as I play. But, I was thinking about it, and I thought, if anything, should definitely stick with my tradition of doing the game of the month of the year. It's probably one of my more fun videos for me to do. It's also one of the longest. So if you're expecting, since I decided to try to do stuff with quality at one point, fuck that. We're just yapping. So do something else. I'm not even going to bother putting up logos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Cool. Just making sure, because I narrowed it down from a list of 20. And I have to say, this year, doing this whole I want to play more RPGs to get through the backlog thing, hugely successful, especially finishing off all the Cold Steel games. And now I have more Trails games to look forward to whenever NIS gets around to it. But as successful as this was, I said this was really so I would finish fewer games. I actually came in pretty hot. I thought I'd only finished like 40 or something like that. I actually finished 56. But a majority of those, roughly half, were RPGs. Your Tales of Arise games, your SMTs, I think 3 Cold Steel games, a lot of stuff in there that was a lot more long form. So getting those out of the backlog has been really good, especially now. Moving into 2022, I'm not going to do the same thing again. It was exhausting to a point, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a point to finish at least 12 retro games, meaning PlayStation 1 backwards, just for the sake of, figuring out what stays and what goes, because some of you guys already know. The clutter finally got to me, and since I use EverDrives for everything, I've put everything away in a storage unit that I happen to have for Christmas decorations, and is also now filled with video games. To be honest, it's great to have the closet space back, but guess what went in there? More games. So we're gonna have to revisit this again, and I'm getting old. I should be able to do this without even thinking about it. Anyway, so I've been yapping for about 4 minutes now by the time I edit out me walking back and forth 50 times to catch the most obnoxious one. So let's get into Game of the Month of the Year. For the uninitiated, I used to do a Game of the Month every month. And at the end of the year, my Game of the Year can be from any year. It can be from any genre. It can be any system, any platform. It's basically the 12 best games I played in a given year. Now, I have changed it, obviously, since then, because I don't do like a monthly recap thing anymore, or anything. So basically, I took 12 games that I thought were amazing. I randomized them, so you have no idea when I finished them, unless you go to my backlog, which is under Wet Rubbish. And we'll just take it from there. So kicking it off, we're starting off with Forgotten Anne, which I had played on the Switch. Forgotten Anne is, I think it was a Kickstarter game, and it is a traditionally animated puzzle platform game. Think along the lines of your, maybe not as archaic, but like your Prince of Persia games, your flashbacks, your Blackthorns, just for sake of influence. It is such a gorgeous game, and it really harkens back to a little bit of the Studio Ghibli. Main character Anne looks very Studio Ghibli. It's very fantastical, and basically, the whole premise behind it is Forgotten Anne lives in a world of forgotten things. You know, the missing sock. You do laundry with 12 pairs of socks for whatever reason, 11.5 come out. What happens that somehow she has fallen into this forgotten world? And there's a whole, I guess you could say, universe revolving around that of, forgotten things. If you think of like the island of misfit toys, it's kind of like that. And it's her adventures as sort of, I guess you could say, an officer who's basically, her job is to track down these miscreants and basically just kill them. But she's human. And she also doesn't know where she came from. She herself is lost. She was found by some other individual. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but she doesn't know where she is with everything, and you meet this very colorful cast of characters. Again, it's very Studio Ghibli, and even then, I would say some of the character design really harkens back to some of the John Bluth stuff, like Secret of Nim. Not so much like with the rats and the mice, but like, concept and, personality. And the soundtrack is orchestrated. It's gorgeous. If you have no interest in puzzle platform games, I would say just YouTube the cutscenes, because it is really freaking good. And this is something I had bought digitally some time ago, and I passed on it from limited run foolishly. I really should have gone in on that. I would have even gone with the collector set just because I enjoyed that so much, because some of you guys know I have friends who are professional animators. So when stuff like this comes out, I talk about it from a nerdy game perspective, and they talk about it from a nerdy keyframe perspective. So it's kind of interesting to that. And I had mentioned it to one of my friends, and he was like, I kind of like the fact that the frame rate is cut in half at certain things, because it really makes I was like, oh, Jesus, here we go. Is it 60 frames for me? Yeah. But foolishly, I did not get it from limited run, and I actually ended up ordering a Japanese PS4 copy, which also plays in English, purely because I wanted something out of this, because it was that enjoyable and that good. As of this recording, at least, it looks like limited run managed to find a bunch of stuff in the warehouse, and Forgotten Ant happens to be in it. It's a really good game. Highly recommend it. Sticking a little bit more closely to what style of games I typically play, I'm putting Bravely Default 2 on here. Now, I know Bravely Default is an interesting series for a lot of people, because it's kind of meta, it's kind of fourth wall breaking at certain points. Again, vague for risk of spoilers. But here's the thing with Bravely Default. I love the original Bravely Default, which was Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light, and I will continue to talk about that game, because that game was the beta test for what would eventually become Bravely Default. And it really harkens back to that Final Fantasy V, and I would dare say a little bit of, mostly Final Fantasy V, we'll say, with a job system where anybody can be anything. You can swatch any way you want, you can combine different abilities, and you can break the motherfucking battle system as much as you want. And with Bravely Default, one of the key things to it is the soundtrack. I think they went a little bit different this time. Not so much with the, raucous rock music that I tend to love, and, some of the more metal things. They went with like a really weird, and the only band I can think of that does something like this is, what the hell are they called? It's like Eskimo Callboy or something like that. Basically, it's kind of like a metal disco EDM sort of thing, particularly with the main battle theme in this. It has like this really, it has like an underlying, guitar riff in the background. They kind of do a little bit of a solo thing, but you also get the synthesizers just pounding. And I'll tell you, even though some of the boss fights in the beginning were incredibly difficult because you just don't have that job flexibility at that point, you were pumped the entire time. And that's probably the best strength of this game, is that the battle system, even like the hard battles that, I'll be honest, I had to redo a couple of times, I didn't get frustrated. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it a little bit differently this time. And even then, from a strategic point of view, I get out of the battle and go, okay, fine. So obviously, subbing Ranger here is not a good idea. Maybe I should go with Bard. And then I realized, no, Bard as a background is pretty bad because I'll spend all my time singing. And once again, that battle system flexibility is just where I spend most of my time playing these games. And this was actually my second most played game out of the year, coming in, I think it was 56 hours. And that's to get all the real endings and all that crap. The one thing I will say about this game, the story is very much, I guess you could say, fairy tale style once again. Towards the end of the game, I guess the developers did realize you may be under leveled, so you kind of just get a ton of XP really fast for whatever reason. But the last bosses of the game are really where I guess you could say the story kind of comes home, and it makes much more sense in the grand scheme of things. But up until then, it's pretty, I'll be honest, it's kind of forgettable. It's very storybook stuff, a lot of stuff we've seen before, but it's kind of just there. The characters are fine. I like the fact that they kept them, once again, with different accents to represent, different nationalities and all that stuff. But I think where I tended to get kind of like, I think it was just the initial naming conventions of the characters, because they're obviously musical references. You have Elvis, you have Adele, and then I forgot the name of the other two. But, I'm like, okay, so that once again, they're going for the meta referential bullshit and all that stuff. But it's at the end, that's where, like, I guess you could say where, I was starting to drag along in the game, but coming into the end, just fighting those final bosses and this having to restructure my party a couple of times, not even grinding, just playing around with the mechanics, just to once again break the battle system. That is the joy of these games. Also, I guess continuing on, Persona 5 Strikers, I did a video on this and I sang praises about this game as much as I could. With Persona 4, I know the Ultimax, the Arena and the Ultimax games are sequels because they take place after. Persona 4 Dancing is canon, apparently, but with Persona 5 Dancing, it was just really for fun. Persona 5 Strikers is a true sequel to Persona 5, not Persona 5 Royale, Persona 5, and it's all the better for it. I really enjoyed the fact that you continue to see the characters grow. You can see, even though they're better, quote-unquote, people now, they still have a lot to do. They still have a lot of growing up to do. And when you put it in a road trip perspective, that just makes it really fun because I love road trip movies. Euro Trip is like one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies of all time, and it's absolutely horrible. But Michelle Trachtenberg was cute at the time. I don't know what she looks like now, but I know she's about my age. Anyway, with this game, though, I think, disguising it as a Muso or a Warrior style game was a disservice to some people. I like Warrior style games, although I find these days I like the spin-offs more. Some people were just like, no, I don't want to play this. It plays more like an action RPG, to be completely honest, which is Ways of Dudes. But that being said, you can't just, you could, mindlessly just hit the button over and over again, but you have to pay attention to the Persona weaknesses. You still do. Especially with the boss fights, they're fun. They're a lot more engaging than a typical one. There's phases, all that sort of thing. All the voice acting is phenomenal. The music is just as good. The one area of this game I wish was a little bit different was towards the end, because there is a little bit of that fake ending bullshit again. But in the context of things, it makes sense because it allows one character to grow even more than they had done in the previous games, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. And the new character that they add in for these games, as they typically do, is not throwaway. She actually has a very big part of the story, and you grow attached to her. Some people thought Aigis in Persona 3 was kind of just tossed in, even though she's actually really important. And then for FES, the story is about her. And some people are like, oh, it should be about so-and-so, No, it has to be Aigis, because Aigis has to continue to grow, because Aigis, while being an android, is becoming a person, that sort of thing. Not exactly the context here, but there's a little bit of a reference to that. They're kind of treading on that. But I feel like they did it much better in Persona 5. I guess you could say the Persona Atlas storytelling continues on, even though it is in a different genre. Immortals Phoenix Rising. I played this very late. I got it. I think I bought it on Black Friday and then and then returned it and then bought it back 6 or 7 times because the price kept dropping. So at the end of the day, I think I paid $10 for this. And I'll be very honest. I am not a huge fan of Ubisoft games, these open world things, because end of day, it's just a bunch of collectible bullshit. It's a bunch of towers. It's basically just getting fast travel so that you can get to other areas faster, so you can get more collectible bullshit and move on. However, what I am all about is Greek mythology. Ever since I was a little kid, it was always my favorite thing to learn about. Even Roman mythology. I took Latin for 5 years in grammar school, and the history of it was always the most fun aspect of it for me. And Norse mythology always gets me here. That's like, my personal favorite. But with Greek mythology, it's just so fun. You could say, oh, the God of War games and all that stuff too. But what made this game so fun is I knew the stories and they made fun of it. The game is very tongue-in-cheek. It's not afraid to poke fun at itself. And I love the fact that the narration, I'm not going to say who it is, because it would be total spoilers, is basically two old men arguing. And they're just yelling at each other the whole time. And he's like, it's like, blah, 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 why'd you do this? Like, I thought it was a good idea. It's basically two old Greek men just arguing back and forth. And there's a lot of fourth wall breaking. It's silly, but the combat's really good. The dungeon design is very Zelda. It's very good. It's a very solid game. And playing it, this was one of those things where I go, am I sure this is an Ubisoft game? And I just didn't, somebody just didn't print out a fake case. I really hope there's a sequel. I don't know what else they could potentially do with it. Maybe if they were to go into other mythologies. I know they tried to do that with the expansion pass, but a lot of people said they kind of just tossed it out because Ubisoft, they have to get their residual income. But it's a really good game. At this point, it's like stupidly budgeted price. Just do it. It's really fun. Even the side quests, and I'm not a big fan of open world side quests. At one point, I just get sick of them and I move on. The fact that it dealt with all the different gods, all the different individuals, all the different stupid stories, like one of them, with the boar fight. I'm not even going to go into that, but it had me laughing. I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. This is what it comes down to. And it's just like, yeah, he got hit really hard and he died. It's a lot of stuff like that. And I think if you're in for something that's kind of feel good, low impact, definitely go with this game. It's really fucking fun. But you still got to do the whole like Assassin's Creed tower thing. Coming off of that, as my nose continues to itch like no tomorrow, I played Haven. Graphically, this game turned me off so much, and I have to thank Game Pass for allowing me to play this with no barrier of entry whatsoever, because now I've purchased a physical copy of it on the PS5 so I can replay it again in beautiful fake 4K or faux, whatever the fuck it is they do. So what's Haven? Haven is kind of like RPG adjacent. It's basically about a couple who are marooned on a planet, basically fleeing for their lives so they can love each other because of a archaic class system where they're technically not supposed to be together. There's prearranged marriages everywhere, but they're madly in love with each other. And basically, you just have to survive on this planet. There's a story that goes on there, but and some exploration stuff too. But it's very low impact. It's very chill. The music is really good. Like if you're into like some slow jam EDM or just like some ambient synth stuff, this game's got you covered. But the part that really got me, the RPG fights are kind of dumb. It's very much like they try to go with the whole co-op thing. Like you could do it with two people, but really you can do it with one controller. The left character will use the left stick, the right character uses the right stick. You have to coordinate, you have to do opposites, one can guard the other one can heal the other one. All that shit's throwaway. The important thing and the best part about this game is the relationship dialogue between the two characters, between the protagonists. As somebody in a relationship myself, I cannot tell you how many of these conversations, how many of these arguments I have had. And I was just able to listen to them and just laugh. Like, yeah, I've said the same thing. Why the fuck are you on my side of the bed? Like, it killed me. But it was so much fun because I was able just to look at this and go, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, this is a thing. The one thing I will say about this game is there's a little bit of choice stuff in the dialogue. You know, you can basically make one character more, I'll say, dominant or more assertive than the other. Ultimately, it really decides on what you want to do. But really, here's the thing to keep in mind. There's a critical choice at the end of the game. It is purely dictated by whoever's the most assertive. So I'm not going to go into spoilers, but based on the fact that I went more assertive with one character and then this whole end sequence happened, I was kind of like, what the fuck? Like, that's not what I wanted. Apparently, that's why. But it's not a long game. It's like, I'll say 12, maybe 13 hours, depending on how much exploration you do. The combat's really throwaway. The bosses, you level up and stuff, but it's really not important, I would say. I think really it's just about the character development. That's really what you got to key in on. And basically just how two people occupy their time on a broken down ship in a broken down planet. Now, coming off of this, I played and finished Cyber Shadow on Xbox Game Pass as well, and I am waiting for a physical copy of this to be announced. This is a retro-style NES 2D platformer. I would say Robot Ninja Gaiden, but I find it more like Robot Ninja Gaiden plus Celeste plus Shovel Knight plus. Music's really good. The game is really challenging. There is a generous amount of checkpoints, thank God. The bosses are really fun. I don't understand why a robot ninja is running around. It does explain it, but it's kind of like, okay. But the story kind of propels itself into this whole weird mystic thing. But I think the important thing with a game like this is the story and the cutscenes are very much a la Ninja Gaiden, like that storytelling mechanic. But it's basically about the platforming. It's about the combat. It's about, dying over and over again so that you can not learn enemy patterns, but learn level layout. And each time you do better and better and better. The last boss, I can tell you, has 3 phases. In case in point, phase 1 was stupid easy, whatever. Phase 2 was a little bit more challenging, got through it. Phase 3 completely wiped me out. Second time I played, first phase, knocked it out. Second phase, knocked out. Third phase, completely wiped me out. Third time, wiped out the first phase, wiped out the second phase, got the second phase, got the third phase to 50%. And just gradually you get like that. And it's not because you're getting pattern recognition, but you're also... I don't want to say you get discouraged because you're kind of... At that point, I was just obsessed with finishing it because there's a huge obnoxious tower thing with some precision platforming and jumping and timing stuff that after that, I was like, I am not doing this again. But this game, I will say, it completely caught me by surprise. I basically just watched a trailer and it's like, okay, this seems like a good throwaway game in between all these RPGs, and I was obsessed with it for like a week and a half. I think I played this just before Tales of Arise came out. One of my friends, I had mentioned to him, was like, dude, you have to try this. It's on Game Pass. And even he was like, holy shit, this is really fucking good. It's an excellent game. As soon as there is a physical copy, maybe even an LE, I will definitely jump in on it. Really fucking good. Tormented Souls. This game is, I guess you could say, a tribute to the classic Resident Evil formula. We're talking like Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2. Takes place in a mansion. It has no problems with referencing Resident Evil directly through the puzzles, through the layouts, through the music, through the saving conventions. Has no problems going with some of the, I guess you could say, more psychological stuff out of Silent Hill. Not afraid whatsoever. Even has the graphics of like an early PS3 game, maybe a late PS2 game, and it is all the better for it. You can even put it tank controls if you wanted to, which don't. I was so happy with this game. Even the voice acting is bad, and the lips aren't even properly animated. Like, there's one character in this game that's a priest, and he's just sitting there. He's like, and he's just like, good to see you, da da da, and nothing. He's not moving at all. He's kind of just there. Like, they were like, okay, we got $10 for this priest. It's there, and that's it. I enjoyed this game so much. And some of the puzzles, I will be honest with you, are I had to look them up. I was like, I have no idea what the hell's going on here. But it was so enjoyable. And there's two endings. I got the shitty ending, and fuck it, and I looked up the good ending. But as somebody who really loves the Resident Evil games, particularly the classic ones, except six, this was such a breath of fresh air, knowing that somebody else was able to do this so well, and completely just acknowledge, okay, listen, this is our game, this is our original story, our original concept, but we are going to motherfucking reference the shit out of this. And it's all the better for it. And to that point, I just watched Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. If you're a fan of these games, you got to watch this movie. It is not good, but it is fucking fun. Now, coming into this is where we're starting to get into the weeds a bit. Mighty Goose. What? Mighty Goose is a Metal Slug style 2D running gun where you play a goose with robot arms running around killing endless dudes. And it is so much stupid fucking fun. It is high octane. It's short, but it definitely encourages you to replay. You can get buddies to help you out. Honestly, I stuck with one buddy who just throws me ammo from time to time. But very much like Metal Slug, you can get rocket launchers, you can get shotguns, you can get lasers, you can get all this stuff. You can go into a mode, basically like a rage mode. I forgot what it's called. It's called like the Mighty Goose mode, where basically he goes Super Saiyan. And like the animation, I can't remember exactly, but basically like his head shows up like on the side of the screen like that, and it's breathing fire. And you get a tank, you get a mech, all this crazy, wacky stuff. And it's just so much energy. And I'll be honest, it's not difficult. Even on the harder difficulty, it's not that difficult. But it's just so fucking insane. And the frame rate is solid. Like, there's times where with Metal Slug and even shooters, I will try to put my ship or my character in the area of a lot of bullets to slow down the frame rate so I can maneuver a little bit better and I have more time to think. Nope, you fucked. But it's really good. It's also on Game Pass. Hoping a physical for this comes out. It was really fucking good. I think it's on everything too. Also finished Metroid Dread. I really don't think I need to say much about this. I did not mind the whole Emmy thing. I know a lot of people felt was like, oh, the Dark Souls Metroid games. Ooh. No, they were doing the fucking fusion thing. And I'll be honest with you, the fusion thing was terrifying just because it's on an older console and you don't have as much freedom of motion compared to the more modern stuff. And in this one, it's basically just a rinse and repeat tactic to pad out the game. But guess what? There was a purpose to it. And I'll be honest with you, I got pretty good at countering them too. It's because there's no tells, really. It's all about timing. And it reaches a point, like if you were to bust out a metronome, if you're a nerd, you can figure out, like, counter, like stuff like that based on what the animation was. You could figure it out. But it's a very small window. If you miss it, you dead. You already know that. Sometimes, like, you can do it where you're slightly off and Samus will, like, kick him a bit and you can try again. That I only succeeded at once, I think. But overall, this was definitely, I want to say, one of the harder Metroid games I've played. And it's not hard because the combat of the bosses were hard. One boss was pretty hard, but it's the map. A lot of people were like, no, this map was tiny by comparison. I don't know if I'm getting old. I got lost every which way. I had no concept of elevators. I had no concept of trains. I had no concept of teleporters. I had no idea where the fuck I was at any given time. But at one point I found myself fighting the final boss and I thought I did a good thing. Final boss fight is by far one of the most epic things in a Metroid game since Super Metroid, in my personal opinion. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. I think and I wish we got a Switch Pro, though. I know there was unscrupulous means to play this at 60 frames and in HD, and it's unfortunate that it's not an official thing. The Switch OLED is beautiful and wonderful and all that. I personally didn't get one. I would love just an updated model. Oh, wait, that's called the Steam Deck. But I would love to have a physical model in my hand at this point. Because I think that's really the one thing that's holding this game back. as well as the whole difficulty and fiasco bullshit of trying to get the limited edition. This was literally the first limited edition I was not able to get day one. I eventually found one, but it took a lot of effort. I am talking like refreshing Best Buy over and over again, Amazon over and over again. Finally, finding somebody, I guess, returned it to the one in Midtown, the Best Buy. Go over there, and I'm like literally like looking at it, see like what's wrong with it. Nothing was wrong with it, thank God. But have it now, and I'm happy for that. But I think really the one thing, man, the one thing that really disappointed me about this game is a spoiler, and I can't say it, but something's missing. If you finish the game, you may be able to know what it is. If you're not sure, ask me and I'll tell you privately. I was kind of shocked, and I'd even looked at my fiance and said, "Wow, that didn't play out like I thought it was going to play out." Adam is back. He's still a dick. Although I will say I really enjoyed the narrative this time. I think I actually enjoyed Metroid Other M. I know some people were kind of like bent out of shape that Samus was really whiny. I guess it was supposed to show growth, but I kind of like how in this one, she's mostly silent, but she is, I don't want to say she has her badass attitude again, because you see weakness. Like, you legitimately see weakness when you lose all your abilities. Like, typically it's just like, okay, go find this. You see it in eyes and close-up shots they do. But at the same time, it's like, even though she knows, okay, I'm missing this ability and this ability, and I'm really not able to do so, and Adam's keeping me down, she just still fucking does it. But it's a really good game. Probably one of the best on the Switch, but the other part of that, too, is I also love these Metroid-style games, which is why I played Deedlit and the Wonder Labyrinth the second it went up on Game Pass, because I could not wait for my physical copy to show up from PlayAsia. I gotta say, if you were to ask me which of these two was better, I gotta say it was Deedlit. And that's a bit of a sort of thing. But here's really where I think Metroid Dread lost a couple of points with me. Nintendo hasn't really been keeping up on the whole Metroid-style genre or the Castlevania-style genre. They've kind of left it to the side and focused on other things, for better or for worse, right? Other outfits, other companies, other developers have taken that, and they've improved it, and they've done it to a T. Mercury Stream did, I think, the Castlevania game on the 3DS, which was also more of a more of a Castlevania Symphony of the Night style. Even then, I played it. It was competent. It was fun. It wasn't the best. Metroid Dread, amazing game. But with Deedlit, I felt like they took some of that familiar stuff, the teleports, the saving, the weapons, the leveling up, magic system, finding things, an incentive to complete the map. And they did it all in 6 hours. And they gave you a story with a narrative and with a classic anime that I actually watched. And on VHS, nonetheless. But here's the other part of this, too, is this is very much influenced by Symphony of the Night, down to the music. Even Deedlit's running animation is fucking a la carte. It is pretty much the same. They literally just went like that. But with this game, I really, really, really feel you got to watch the show first. A lot of the stuff referenced, a lot of the characters that show up will have no meaning to you whatsoever unless you watch the show. And the OVAs and everything else. It's a little dry, to be honest. It's an anime from the 90s. But here's the other part of it, too. This is an anime that was influenced by Dungeons & Dragons, transposed into an anime, and I think a light novel series. So it's a Western thing that was made Eastern to make it Western again, that was then developed into an Eastern-style game. I don't know. But definitely, you got to play this one. It's on Game Pass. You have no excuse. You have no fucking excuse. It does hurt me to say I think this was a better game than Metroid Dread, because Metroid's my jam. But when I tell you, I even love the fact that the battle mechanics in this were completely different. Deedlit has a bow. Deedlit has this, typical Symphony of the Night style weapons, clubs, swords, daggers, polearms. But she gets a bow. You don't get a whip. You get different abilities. You get the spirits that she's able to summon, because she does no magic in the show. And it's the spirits that you see in the show. The spirit of fire, the spirit of wind, all these things show up. It's very much influenced from the show. a couple liberties here and there, but all the characters are there. It's even the bosses are fun and referential. It's such a good damn game. Highly recommend it, especially at only like 6 hours. If you have like a quick weekend, you can knock that out. Next up, we have SMT5. This was my most played game of the year. It came in, I think, 76 hours. Here's the thing with SMT, or traditional Shin Megami Tensei. The story has never been important. The story is always the same. The world is fucking ended, and you're going to be the guy who changes everything, or gal. You're going through a post-apocalyptic world. You know, if you look at Nocturne, you know, you become the demon kid. I forgot his name. The ultimate demon. Running around with his weird glow-in-the-dark tattoos. Now you play a more androgynous main character with a laser sword. Which I understand was intentional. But there was a lot of focus on the story to start, which was a little different for me. You know, a lot of the conflict as drawn, and, you know, typically it really delves on like this whole ideology, some theological themes and all that sort of stuff, particularly in Nocturne with the different characters. You get the, you know, of course, chaos and law and neutral, but you get, I guess you could say, kind of a reference to a religion, and then it's flipped on its head in a way that some may offend people. In this game, there is definitely a little bit of that, but it starts out heavy and then eventually just vanishes towards the end of the game. You know, the game starts off where God lost, like Lucifer killed him. Like that's pretty much how it opens. And then the rest of the game is just like trying to, you know, fix this shit up. But it's interesting because the story is so heavy. And then it goes right back into classic SMT towards the end. And I can't help but think they ran out of time. Because characters that you spend the entire game chatting with and, you know, getting development story beats from all of a sudden just vanish. Or they have very little part at all. And even some characters are introduced and you're like, oh shit, this is going to be big. And it's just a throwaway boss fight. It's very odd. And towards the end of the game, I felt like I was really under-leveled. But then all of a sudden I gained like 50 levels and 50 demons. Like, it just... I'm not sure what happened there. Because I did have to grind a little bit for the last boss, but that was basically because of my demon setup. It just wasn't good. But once I figured out what I wanted to do and I got my team the way I wanted, it was basically just... I just stood there and just hit the A button over and over again and just watched the boss fall down. And then that was it. It kind of just ended. And, you know, they did their ending cutscene thing, and then, you know, all was well and good, and then the credits played, and I was kind of like, I expected a lot more of a burst at the end. But even SMT4 didn't really do that. You know, I went neutral in SMT4, I'm not going to say here. But pretty much it was like, and then everything was good, and that was it. Kind of the same, but I think based on the production value, I expected more. Not to say the game is bad. I was kind of confused. It seemed like the development was... I know it had a difficult time, and it doesn't run particularly well on the Switch either, I'll be honest with you. And I'm happy to say I played it OG because they tossed in some more quality of life stuff after I finished it. It just seems so lopsided. You know, the combat is the best part. The demon designs are, to this day, are amazing. Even the redesigns they've done with a couple of them. I'm making an eye at one of Mara. That's all I gotta say. You can watch the Happy Console Gamer episode on that one. He's actually pretty good though, I'm not gonna lie. But you know, it was so heavy in terms of story, and then it goes away. And then these open world sequences, not open world sequences, landscapes are pretty, like there's a lot of verticality, but there's nothing there because it's post-apocalyptic. It's kind of just a big open area. And I think really that's where I enjoyed it, but towards the end, I was just like, ay. It's going Ubisoft. It's the same thing over and over again. I fight my way to a save point, then I teleport back, and then I level up, and then I fight to the next one, then I teleport back, and I fight to the next one over and over again. And then I get to the end, and it's supposed to be this huge climax into ultimately how I decide to reshape the world, and then it just ends. Which is what I'm used to, but based on that lead up, I expected more, essentially. And then finally, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, mind you, I did not do any of these in order, as I typically do. I will say Tales of Arise was originally on this list when it was 15. Some of you may be like, where the fuck is it? I love the first half of the game. The second half of the game, it was like season 2 of an anime, and it's like they have to wrap it up, but they also signed a contract for 24 episodes, and they kind of just got thrown some padding. That is kind of how I felt with the second half of Tales of Arise. But as an RPG, as a Tales game, they need to stay with this direction, with this style. This was a benefit to the series to propel it forward. It is an outstanding game regardless. But in the grand scheme of me only doing 12 games, this came in at number, I think, 14. But the final game I finished up for this list here is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. And some of you guys know, I am a huge fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. Was before the movies. I love the humor. I love the tongue-in-cheek. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite RPGs of all time is Outer Worlds, which is essentially, as I said, a Guardians of the Galaxy simulator, because you basically make a ragtag group of misfits and you run around the galaxy doing shit. You do that with this. And I will say, and I know, I think it was Leo, the funny nerd, disagreed with me. This is a better Mass Effect game than the last bunch of Mass Effect games. Because there's dialogue choices. And there's crew banter back and forth. Now, honestly, your decisions really don't make a whole world a lot of anything. But, you grow closer to different characters. And I think, for me, what I really enjoyed about this, besides the gross redesign of Quill, is that the characters felt authentic. They didn't look at the movies and go, okay, we have to Batista this, we have to, I forgot his name, Chris Pratt this. They really said, okay, these are the characters from the comics, these are the personalities. They voice actors, everybody made it their own character. It was their own interpretation. The references, the music, the licensed music of this, oh my God, it is so good. And I will say, it really made me laugh because Quill gets a special ability where basically he calls in the whole team for a huddle. He holds up his tape deck, and then basically you have to pick like an option to motivate the team, and then a song plays. And the first one I got was a Rickroll. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I burst out. I was like, there's no other way this could be done. There's Def Leppard on there. There's Journey on there. Holding Out for a Hero played during the final boss fight, which I thought was amazing. I hope to God that's scripted because it was so fitting. The game is outstanding. If you're a Guardians fan. I will say some people coming in completely uninitiated, if you've been living under a rock and not watching any of the Marvel movies, you may think this is too silly. This doesn't make any sense. This is a load of nonsense, blah, blah, blah. The combat isn't all that great. I don't really care for these characters. I wish I could play as the other characters, etc., etc. In the grand scheme of things, for me, and being a little bit biased because Star-Lord is my favorite character out of the whole team, it made total sense to me. The wackiness, the zaniness, the fact that they know what they're doing, but not really. Bringing in different characters that haven't even been introduced in the movies, I thought was very smart and very good. Even referencing villains from the 60s and 70s, I thought was amazing too. But I also, I read comics and, I'm a fan of these things before the movies were a thing. So I'm ultimately a little bit biased on that. But where this, as a video game, I think really excelled was that it does not have any business being this fucking good. The writing does not need to be this good. Graphically, it doesn't need to be that impressive. From a development perspective, we know these characters, but we see them grow. I won't even say as a team, as a family, because that's ultimately what it is. And that's a big theme with Guardians, too, is a sense of family. They didn't need to do any of this. They literally could just slapped on some skins and say, guess what? You play this game, you get a free pizza, and you get them in Fortnite. They could have done any of that, and they didn't. And that's ultimately why this is my game of the month of the year. And I did not expect it to be. That is the thing. I literally thought this was going to be a throwaway, let me just get some nonsense. I watched Shang-Chi right after finishing this. and I just finished Hawkeye, and with this I was kind of just like, wow, I really didn't expect this to be this good. And I already knew this particular moment that happens in the very beginning of the game, where they're trying to figure out how to I can't spoil it, but basically how to get into this stronghold. And Drax the Destroyer, who was played by Batista in the movies, drops like a name of a character, a classic Marvel villain. And it's just like, it's just nonsense. He just throws it in there. And I was like, that's funny. And then all of a sudden, something happens, and all of a sudden, it's important. And it's like in the background, when everybody realizes this is the only way they can do this, he's in the background going like this. Like, I burst out laughing. I was like, this is the only way the Guardians can figure this out. And the fight is amazing. It's not hard. It's not impressive. It's just amazing for the dialogue. And because everybody is like, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And Drax is like, this is the greatest day of my life. And it's just so much fun. It is incredibly fun. Especially with the fact that they use characters that aren't even in the movie. So if you're a comic fan first, you're like, oh, cool. As opposed to the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which was ultimately just characters that showed up in the Marvel Studios movies. And I feel like that's what lost that game a ton of points with me before anything else. But, there you have it. So, Guardians of the Galaxy. I really, really hope they don't do a sequel. I think they should leave this alone. I think, if anything, coming off of that Avengers game, this is the direction that game should have gone in the first place. Not this whole games with the service bullshit. Give a cohesive Avengers story. Toss in some skins. And here, I'm going to go on a slight rant here. Why does it still take me 12 hits with the Hulk to kill anybody? Why? Well, why? Widow, I get it. And fighting fucking Taskmaster 50 times. Why? I don't get it. They should have done, if they'd done the Avengers game in the style of this Guardians game, I think the conversation would have been totally different. I think the story would have been more cohesive. Honestly, I think it would have sold better and not be discounted to $9.99 all the time. Or on Game Pass, where people are just playing it, they can say, oh, look, our account went up. No, it's because it's free. I'm sorry. Whew. Anyway, I've been Alex. I'll see you all in the next one. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Hopefully 2022 sucks a little less. Take care.